second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardaws, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, WAC Hoops Nation? Another episode of the Straight Outta WAC podcast. It is Go UVU week this week as we preview the Utah Valley men's and women's basketball teams. I have an affinity to the green and white because I am an alum. As you can see, I have with me Utah Valley men's basketball head coach Mark Madsen. And before the recording, I mentioned we haven't. I don't think we've talked since Las Vegas, if I remember right. I think after that loss in the second round to Abilene Christian. So it's been
a little while. It's great to see you again, Kyle. I've heard you've had a really good summer. It's great to see you, and I'm excited to get back in a great conference. Get back playing.
I think we have, if I was doing the math right, we have 47 days until the season opener where you guys open up at Utah State. I don't know if you know the history, but Utah Valley has lost 13 straight times to the Aggies. So are you excited for that game up there in the Smith Spectrum?
Utah State has a great team. And when we talked about putting together our schedule, our criteria was play against the best programs possible. Utah State, just the way they play, the style of play, how sound they are on offense and defense, they're a great team, and we only want to play against the best.
I love the in-state game too because you got Utah State, you got BYU as well again. Last year, you guys beat them in overtime. I was sitting in the stands with my dad and my friend who were wearing their Cougar gear, so I got to rub it in a little bit as the Wolverines pulled that off. I mean, how fun is it to play that game? You've now had a chance to play it twice because you got to go to Provo the COVID year where there weren't a lot of fans. And you guys actually hung with the Cougars for a while. And then obviously this last year, a sold-out UCCU Center, and you guys were able to – they were number 12 at the time too. So that was a massive win for the program.
Well, we had – first of all, the game could have gone either way. It was an overtime game, as a lot of those close games do. It comes down to a very, very slim margin of error. Our guys stepped up and made some plays. BYU made some great plays. More than anything, it was a great night of basketball against a great team, a great university, a great coaching staff. And it's been a tremendous game and series, and we're excited to play them this year as well.
Have you been in the Marriott Center since you've been in Orem, maybe before you even came to Orem, when it was like a sold-out crowd, 18,000 people in that place?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I think because when we played them during the pandemic, obviously there were restrictions, and then I have not, other than that in the shoot-around, I really haven't been in there. But I know it's a phenomenal venue. It's a great place to play basketball. I know that BYU has fantastic fan support.
I want to make it clear for our listeners too, for the people that are watching this. When Utah Valley plays at BYU, and you can go back and check it, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this. That is one of the top 5 most attended games on BYU's home slate. I just want to point that out. Every year it's one of the top 5 outside of maybe Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So it's going to be a rocking place, and looking forward to that ball game.
Well, you talk about. BYU had a really, really strong recruiting class this summer. And so when you look at the pieces they've added with the returners that they have, a player like a Spencer Johnson, a Gideon George, a Fous Traore. I mean, these are guys that are studs. They know how to play the game. They know how to play the game the right way. And then they're extremely well coached with Coach Pope and his coaching staff. And so, that will be a very hard-fought game. Going to Wake Forest will be a hard-fought game. You've mentioned the Utah State, and then of course going out to Oregon to a Pac-12 school, and excitement, anticipation, and knowing that these are going to be absolute battles.
You got, I think I was going over it. If we go by the net rankings from last year, you got 5 quad 1 opportunities on your slate. I mean, like you said, we got Utah State, BYU, Wake Forest, Oregon. You also go to Boise State right after Thanksgiving. I mean, people can't say the Wolverines aren't willing to schedule a difficult or put together a difficult non-conference slate. I mean, you also got Northern Arizona and a couple others on there. Like, talk about putting that schedule together. I know you had the seeding system, and then it's tough to get home games in Orem, but like, what's the mindset of becoming road warriors, I guess you could say?
Well, the mindset is, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Kyle, in the sense of we only want to play against the best. I mean, you look at Long Beach State, and they're straight off of winning their conference last year, and we're playing them in Orem this year. Coach Monson down there, he doesn't mess around. I mean, he recruits great players. They play an up-tempo style. They switch a lot. They spread you out. They'll shoot threes. And so we look at our schedule, but we would not have it any other way because, we don't really do buy games here where we buy opponents to come in and play against us at home. We don't really do that philosophically, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we do try to go out there and play the best teams, which will help us later in the season.
You get to go to Jamaica, this non-conference slate right before Thanksgiving. How excited are you for that MTE and being part of that, and the opportunity for you guys to play maybe teams that they wouldn't normally get the opportunity to play in a non-conference schedule?
I think anytime in the preseason when you can expose yourself and your players to all types of different styles of play. You look at the WAC conference. There are so many different styles of play in the WAC, and every coach will tell you that. You have to be prepared for different things every single night, and it's the perfect finishing school for head coaches and for assistant coaches because you learn so much in a single week just through the study and the preparation and all the time and effort that you put in over the summer in terms of prepping for some of these teams. So the different styles of plays is something that I personally, I think it's cool. I think it's good for our players. I think it's good for our coaching staff because it allows us to grow.
I want to go back to the BYU game for a minute. That was kind of a coming out night for Justin Harmon. I know he got injured a couple days later and missed some of the season, but let's talk about him and I mean, just the motor that guy has on him, the ability to make plays, and maybe the role that he made, his increased role this year. I feel like he's going to have without Fardaws there.
Justin is a breath of fresh air off the court and on the court. He is an absolute terror in the best possible sense of the word. Justin, I've said it before, he brings a Chicago toughness, that Midwest style of tough, intense, punishing. I mean, if you show up, when I was growing up, Kyle, we used to go to an outdoor park in San Ramon, which was kind of, in a way, the midpoint between Danville and Oakland, kind of a midpoint. You had to cross a little area. But if you're just picking 5 guys to go play where winter stays on, where everyone from the community comes out to play, you want Justin Harmon on your team. He's a winner. He's a defender. He's a communicator. And he's just a tremendous human being off the court.
So you weren't surprised by what he was able to do coming off the bench for you in that win over BYU?
I think that certain players have the ability to step up in huge moments, and Justin's always had that. I mean, you look at he's just a winner. Everywhere he's been, he's affected winning in a major way, from his high school days to his junior college days, and that winning mentality is contagious.
I want to ask you a little bit more about your roster. You're one of the few I don't want to say few teams because there's a lot of teams that return a lot this year in the Western Athletic Conference. But you return 4 starters. Your bench is still almost intact. I know Trey Ferrer moved on, but you also bring in a 7-footer in Aziz, and you got Justin Harmon there now. Trey Wood is back healthy from what I've heard. Talk about the fact that you got all these guys that come back to play for you after a 21-win season last year. That's impressive because, that's 9 of your top 10 guys from last year, basically.
Well, we really try to create and promote a family environment here at Utah Valley. And I think if you would talk to our players, I think that they would affirm that. We push very hard. We have very high standards. We have very high benchmarks for expectations of our players, but at the same time, we're not gonna kill the guys 6 hours a day, we're just not. That's not us. We work extremely hard, but we also know that there is more to life than basketball, academics, a personal life, and most importantly, each individual player's family and their personal faith. And we have a very diverse group. Those are the key things that, in a lot of ways, transcend basketball.
I want to ask you about Trey Woodbury. Last year, I think you and I and everybody else were extremely high on him. Then he has the injury before the season starts. Comes back in the WAC tournament. That was kind of a shock. I think you said it was a shock to you because he just told you that morning he was going to play, right?
No, I mean, the thing is, we knew Trey had been thinking about it. And I think that he got to a point personally where he made a personal decision that he was ready to step back on the court. And, a lot of these decisions evolve and there's inputs into the decisions. And, we knew it was a possibility. And I admire Trey for making that decision and really admire him for the incredible work ethic that he had in just keeping sharp, keeping tight, and being able to step out and contribute after not having played in live action for quite a while.
Did you see, obviously come back from an injury, you don't know what you're going to see on the floor when they first step on, but what did you see in those 2 ball games that he played last year? First, like you said, first live action that he had. Chicago State, played a few minutes. ACU got more minutes. Like, what did you see from him that you liked and maybe that kind of gave you pause? Like, did we make the right decision in letting him step back on the floor? Was there any hesitation on your part there?
No, there was not, because Trey had achieved all the benchmarks that we had set for him. And I think the thing that stands out with Trey is the instinctual play that he has, the toughness, and the ability to make everyone around him better. But Trey's done that his entire life. He did it for us when 2 years ago when we tied with Grand Canyon for the WAC championship regular season. He did it in his high school days, where it was state championship after state championship in an extremely competitive urban area of Las Vegas, where you get all the best players from California moving there, and you have all the great homegrown talent of Nevada, and there's a lot of that. And it was state championship after state championship for Trey Woodbury and his team. And so leadership, winning, perseverance. That's what I think of when I think of Trey.
I'll ask you this too. What's his offseason been like with him? Last year, talking with you, talking with, Fardaws and others, that like Trey had an awesome offseason. Like, he was ready to go. Is it the same thing this year as you get ready for this November 7th tip-off?
Absolutely. But what you have to know about Trey is not a one-trick pony. Trey, academically, he chose one of the hardest majors at this school in accounting. And so that speaks volumes about him as a person. When I look out my window, he's putting the work in on the court. And then he goes straight to meet with professors to pick their brains on nuances of accounting. Trey's the guy. He never takes the easy way out. And so this last summer, he was taking the upper level accounting classes. He's putting major work in on the court because he's a person that just demands the most from himself and everyone around him.
Obviously there's hype around him. Maybe I put too much hype around him, but the fact that you were mentioning about how he goes and picks professors' brains and stuff, do you love how he handles everything just in a manner of, I'm going to go outwork people? And so kind of like you, you're the type of guy that outworked people, that he takes after you as a coach.
I think he takes after himself in the sense of he has an innate and internal, first of all, just a sense of being the best version of yourself. He has a phenomenal family. Trey's family is off the charts, and I think a lot of that just permeates from who he is as a person, who he comes from. His dad has popped in a couple times over the years in our office, and it just, I think all of that manifests itself in the totality of him as a person.
want to ask you about we'll get to Fardaws in a little bit because I want to talk. That's a little bit more touchy of a subject right now after the news came out yesterday. But I want to ask you about his maybe I don't want to say his replacement because it's going to be hard to replace that guy and what he did for you. But Aziz, I want to say this name right, so maybe you correct me. Aziz Bandeogo, is that how you say that? His last name?
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. And Aziz, he came to us from Akron, University of Akron, and obviously he's Senegalese, and so he is a tremendous talent, a tremendous human being. He's a student of the game. He is someone. Every player is different, as you know, Kyle, and so comparison is kind of the thief of joy in everything, but whether it's Aziz or any player on a team, you talk about a special individual, a special collection of talent. Aziz is someone who he's close to touching the top of the backboard in terms of the athleticism. He's one of those guys, we come in as a staff early mornings. Aziz is in the gym with managers rebounding for him. Aziz has been extremely well coached at Akron, at the NBA Academy out in Senegal, which they have. I was telling our team the other day, I said, guys, the NBA Academy down in Senegal, they don't mess around. I mean, these guys are playing hard. They are playing extremely hard. And then they turn around and they go up to their study hall, where they're, in their personal study hall, putting the work in the classroom, putting the work in terms of learning or polishing different languages, French being a big language down there, English being a big language down there, and then some of the native dialects of the wide collection of players that NBA Academy brings in.
I've heard comparisons to, was it 2-3 years, your first year? I've heard some comparisons to Emmanuel Olojupoki in terms of Aziz, like with his length and like you mentioned, how athletic he is, where he can get to around the rim. Like, do you see that, especially since Olojupoki almost set a new program record for blocks? Like, do you see that with him?
Yeah, Olojupoki, he set the high watermark in terms of Emmanuel, in terms of what he did from a shot blocking perspective. But I'll tell you, and we call him E-Man. E-Man would be the first to congratulate Aziz, if and when Aziz is able to surpass that record. And it's always difficult to describe a player, but I can just I'll tell all the fans of the WAC, I'll tell all the fans in Utah Valley, you need to go ahead and get season tickets, because Aziz is a special player. But not only is Aziz a special player, every player on our roster, you've asked me about a few guys, every player on our roster is incredibly unique. And, this particular roster of players, this may be the most talented roster, top to bottom, that we've ever had here at UVU.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep these to 20-25 minutes, these podcast episodes, but we could go on and on about your roster. I mean, like you said, Blaze Neal's back, who had one of the best assisted turnover ratios in the WAC last year. Jaden McClanahan right there, the backup point guard, or not backup, but he could start too, coming off the bench or possibly starting. You got Latrey Darthard, who is a sharpshooter but can finish at the rim. Tim Fuller, who does everything for you in the paint, rebounds, defends, physicality. Tim Caesar comes off with his athleticism and length that can knock down a three-pointer as well. You added Cam Alford from the JUCO ranks this year. I mean, like, there's so much that I tell people this, and I was in Huntsville a couple of weeks ago, and I told Jason Hoon, I was like, people shouldn't sleep on Utah Valley because you guys have so much returning, and some of these teams didn't get to see Trey Woodbury last year too. So it's like we could go on and on about the roster. I mean, you got to be ecstatic with all the experience that you have, plus the size. Like, okay, you lose Fardaws at 6'10", 6'11", who did everything, but you bring in a 7-footer. Like, I just feel like people are going to discount the Wolverines a little bit, and they shouldn't.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about sports is that, there's always this sense of excitement and anticipation about a new season. And you're an expert on the WAC, probably the foremost expert on the WAC that we have, Kyle. And so you study it, but there's some other people out there that dive in, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to take a group of players and to go through the process of doing everything possible to win. We stress a few things in this program, but winning is one of the big things we stress. Academics, of course, family, and each individual player's personal faith. Those are the key things that we stress here. But there's absolutely excitement. And I'm excited for the competitiveness of the WAC as a whole, because you look across the WAC. This last week I've been out recruiting, and you run into some of the your colleagues at other schools, and we had a great off season, but a lot of schools had great off seasons. And so now it's being the very best version of ourselves in terms of competitive greatness in those big moments, and trying to put together an extremely special season.
Do you, when you've looked across the WAC, and I've said it a couple of times, appreciate the shout out, by the way. I'm grateful for that, and grateful for that.
But Kyle, here's my one bone to pick with you. You're a Utah Valley alum. I think you live in Utah, and yet I see Chicago Cubs. I see the World Series. There's not a single Utah Valley logo.
I have a Utah Valley flag put up somewhere.
I can't see it in studio, Kyle. I can't see it in studio.
I will put that up for our next podcast episode. You will see that on Media Day.
That needs to be up when you have Kyle Keller on the show. when you have every single coach, Bryce, this needs to be up when you have the other coach. And you tell them, hey, I'm objective, but I'm a Utah Valley Wolverine. And so I want you to own that a little bit more.
I will do that just to cause even more grief, especially with New Mexico State fans, as you know, on my Twitter feed. But I don't know where I was going now. When you look at the WAC as a whole, this is where I was going with it. We don't have a Fardaws Aimaq. We don't have a Teddy Allen. We don't have a Darian Trammell this year. Savion Flagg. We had some superstars last year. Let's be honest in the WAC. When you look at the rosters, and maybe you haven't yet, as you're focused on your own squad, do you see that there's more depth in terms of these schools and their rosters rather than having – there's going to be new superstars, obviously, this year. But, right now, you just see depth all over the conference in these rosters. How impressed are you with that?
I'm impressed. I'm incredibly impressed. I mean, what one school that we haven't touched on is California Baptist, which is, number one, a phenomenal academic institution, but number two, from an athletic standpoint, what they've done year in and year out is impressive. And they also had a strong offseason with Rick Croy, who Rick and I have known each other for close to 15 years in terms of what they've done. And they returned some key pieces also. And so, just in those informal conversations with colleagues and peers, every single game has to be extremely well coached by the coaching staff, great preparation is required. And then on the players on all sides as well. The WAC should be a 2-bid conference. Okay. It's probably a long shot this year when you look at the analytics and the numbers and the different benchmarks that have to take place, but this conference should be a 2-bid conference, NCAA wise. And I believe that in some period of time, whether it's 12 months or 36 months or stretching out 5 years, I believe it will happen.
Interesting. I like it. I had a question. I'm going to edit this part out. I had a question, and now it's not on the tip of my tongue anymore.
Yeah.
That happens. I don't have it. It's just it was a follow-up question.
So I'll dive in. Tell those New Mexico State fans on your feed that they can take a hike when they see your Utah Valley logo on there. Tell all the New Mexico State fans they can take a hike.
You know what? They may not have as big of a problem with it if it was a Utah Valley thing. It might be more of an issue if I had a GCU flag up there or something. So, okay. I want to talk to you about Fardaws. Obviously, got some bad news yesterday that was broken. No pun intended there, that he suffered a broken foot and is going to be out quite a few weeks. I mean, I don't know if you talked to him after it or when you found out, but maybe first talk about, as we close up this episode, talk about what he meant to you, not just as a player, but as a, obviously that relationship you had with him. He was there for 3 years at Utah Valley. Yeah. And to get that bad news from a guy who works harder than anyone on his trade and getting in shape and stuff like that, because you've seen it. Yeah. If you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, Kyle, is my heart goes out to Fardaws. There's a human side to this profession, and it's when you see a guy who, and Fardaws and I, we were together, in terms of player, coach, player for 3 years. We've been through ups and downs together. We've been through immense. This university, in terms of the basketball program, reached new heights with Fardaws Aimaq as part of this team. And so to see that injury, but the good news is that it's going to heal. He's going to recover, and he is going to be a key piece in terms of what Texas Tech is going to do, especially later in the season, once he regains the full health and is out there in full rhythm. But yeah, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because Fardaws is a world-class human being, number one, and obviously a world-class player. But knowing Fardaws, he will find a positive in this difficult situation. It's kind of the darkest of nights, but Fardaws is somebody who is going to find a way to shine a light on a positive and in some way of growing out of what appears to be a trial. He's going to turn this setback into a comeback, and it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking news, but like you said, at least it's maybe early enough that he'll be able to get back on the floor as the season gets going. Utah Valley men's basketball head coach Mark Madsen. We will have a video come October 26th when we get a nice little bowling tournament going on Utah Valley's campus. I want to say, fans, this guy can bowl. Like, don't let him fool you. He can bowl. He has dance moves, but he can bowl too.
I'm just glad you're owning Utah Valley University, Kyle. You try so hard. I'm objective. You're overly objective towards us. You give the rest of the league all the love. You're overly critical on us, but we still love you. We still love you, buddy.
It is true. We were in media day in Mark Madsen's first year as head coach in Denver. We were on the same flight back, and he did ask me, he's like, why did you put us, I think it was like 6th or 7th or something.
You put us last. We ended up winning the conference that year, buddy.
Yeah, I get a lot of grief. I try to be objective, but I will admit right now that I bleed green, so I am cheering for Utah Valley night in and night out. And I don't want anybody to mistake me for that. I am a Utah Valley alum. I bleed green. Just for the record, everybody.
We're just messing with you.
I love it. It's the best part of my job. Utah Valley men's basketball head coach Mark Madsen. Wolverines get started November 7th at Utah State, trying to snap a 13-game losing streak to the Aggies. Looking forward to it. Again, thanks, Mark, for taking the time, and good luck this season.
Thanks for having us on, Kyle. Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you around.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.